Remembering the life of actor and comedian Robin Williams, Hillary Clinton wants to patch things up with President Obama, and the woman who rose to fame because of a sex tape is now putting out a picture book. It's going to end up on Steven Cruzer's coffee table, too. All of these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera.
Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the biggest coffee table books making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Michelle Fields is off today, so we're pleased to be joined by commentator and legal analyst Ebony K. Williams. And right next to her is stand-up comic and PJTV contributor, Mr. Steven Cruzer. Now it's time to go to the top of the rundown, and we begin with Cruzer.
At the top of my rundown, Hillary Clinton tries to patch things up with the president. Clinton called the president on Tuesday to let him know that she wasn't attacking him in a recent interview with The Atlantic. There has been some tension between the two camps because they don't like each other. In the interview, Clinton dismissed Obama's foreign policy principle of don't do stupid stuff. She also called his decision to not assist the Syrian rebels early on a, quote, failure. Longtime top Obama aide David Axelrod took to Twitter saying, quote, just to clarify, don't do stupid stuff means stuff like occupying Iraq in the first place, which was tragically a bad decision, end quote. The timing on this is odd to say the least, John, but do you think this is simply a case of her trying to shore up this left flank that she's left exposed for so long?
Well, this relationship was not, is not, and never has been a Match.com success story.
Yes.
This is a Bengali wedding.
Yeah.
This was a marriage where some other party picked the participants and they tried to pretend like they liked each other and tried to pretend like they got along with each other, but they're political adversaries. I mean, this is akin to Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. That was never a match made in heaven. That was a match of political convenience. This was a match of political convenience. She has always thought that she could have done a better job as president than him, and she's reminding the public that next time around when you get to choose a Democrat in the primary, that she thinks she's still a better candidate than him.
So, Ebony, pure speculation here, though. A lot of candidates in this election are kind of distancing themselves from the president.
Sure.
Not bringing him in, which is not unusual in a midterm election, but they're not aligning themselves with him. Do you think her making this grand open public gesture right now is a way of just putting something in the bank and in a couple of years going back and saying, you owe me one?
Speculation, yeah. I think John's right. I just think it's just still so nasty between them. And I think maybe her intentions are good. I don't know how well it's going to play. I think there's a lot of voters who still feel like, especially within the party, that still don't take favorably. They still kind of see her as a sore loser. And this type of thing doesn't go to bolster that in any positive direction. So, you know what? I think she would have been better served to just say nothing. Just let his poll numbers speak for themselves. Just say nothing.
And you know what? The Clintons can harbor a grudge. Don't forget, in 1992, Jerry Brown was the chief competition for Bill Clinton. And Jerry Brown would go out and viciously attack Hillary Clinton during the debates. And Bill Clinton responded very poorly to that. When Jerry Brown ran for governor this last time in California, at the time, Gavin Newsom, the then San Francisco mayor, was also in the field. Bill Clinton traveled to California and endorsed Gavin Newsom in the primary against Jerry Brown because he still harbors that grudge.
Yeah.
My takeaway from this, and Vince Foster agrees with you, by the way, my takeaway from this is that even as tightly scripted as she can be in a magazine interview or an online interview, Hillary is still an awful candidate and has to go back and walk back a lot of what she says and does.
And she takes a lot of things personal. All right, Ebony, what do you have for us?
All right, guys. So at the top of my rundown, the Koch brothers have clearly gotten the memo that by 2050, the majority of all Americans will be either Hispanic, African American, or Asian. It's also not lost on these brothers that while George W. Bush carried 44% of the Hispanic vote back in 2004, President Obama carried that same demographic by 71% just 8 years later. So the billionaire brothers have employed a new strategy to try to recapture some of the Hispanic vote by picking up part of the tab to offer free health care checkups, teach English classes, and help Spanish speakers to learn and earn high school diplomas. The Koch brothers are also funding a program called the Libre Initiative, which is about limited government. So Hispanic pastors are leading prayer breakfasts and workshops on building family-run businesses, etc. So the question then is, clearly this is a party that understands that to be relevant, they're going to have to capture some of this minority-based voter, particularly Hispanic voters. That's the highest growing minority group. Is it going to be enough, John? This type of thing, this type of initiative, is this going to be enough to really make some inroads with a voting bloc that right now seems to be skewing far left?
Well, I think you have to do what you can to appeal to them, but you also need some breaks. You need the Democrats to screw up a couple of times, and then you need to go in and exploit that. I was looking at some numbers in the state of Nevada because Harry Reid is actually in big trouble when he runs for re-election against the popular Hispanic Republican governor, Brian Sandoval. And President Obama's approval ratings in the state of Nevada are down in the 40s. And if you look at the demographics of the state of Nevada, it's a state that is growing heavily Latino. Same thing with all the other southwestern states. And I think if the Democrats are perceived to screw up government or to not come through with all of the things that they said that they were going to do, the watermark is going to come down among all groups, including Hispanics. And if they're concentrated in the Southwest, they're concentrated in states that have been hit very hard by the bad economy, I think the Democrats could create an opening for Republicans.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Stephen, what about you? Do you think that there's some awareness on the part of the party? Because we've got even Senator Lindsey Graham saying that if they don't make some moves, they're going to be irrelevant. So we see part of the party saying that, but then you see other party members that are still hesitant. They still fall short of adopting this bipartisan immigration bill. What's going to be the middle ground? Is there one?
The Koch brothers, contrary to the narrative, are pretty crafty. They're not just these super Jesus freaks who come out and like to throw money around when like the media tries to portray. They're actually very libertarian. They do stuff like this all the time. They're very good. I would separate them from the party because they're much sharper when it comes to looking at the political landscape down the road than the party is right now. And these privately funded things, I'm all for. I don't like the party pandering. I don't like the party just going out. Because when the party panders, when it says, okay, we're going to give you this without even asking, without going into the communities, finding out what they need. Like we found out that immigration isn't even as big a deal with Hispanics in California as the party likes to make it to be.
Right.
So I think this is a very good sign because I think these kind of private initiatives can ultimately get more legs and push the party where it needs to go rather than waiting for it to come top down.
Yeah, gotcha. Good stuff.
All right, time to move to the top of my rundown, where House Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer made quite the first impression when he spoke at the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit this week. He made a joke about a whip. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
First of all, let me tell my friends from Africa, I do not whip people. And if you've watched House of Cards, it is not accurate. Greg Meeks, thank you for the great leadership that you are giving in the Congress, in our country, in Africa, and around the world to make sure that our relationships are better and that we're doing business.
A bizarre opening act, to say the least. Now, Cruiser, as a stand-up comic, I'm curious to get your take on this, because here's my theory. My theory is that he's an old guy who's not particularly funny, and he's the whip, and that's the opening joke that he uses wherever he goes. If he's talking to the Rotary Club, if he's talking to the Lions Club, if he's talking to the League of Women Voters, that's probably how he opens up every single speech, with that bad, pathetic joke. But when you do that, you probably have to take the temperature in the room, because not all jokes work all places. I think that's probably what happened. Your thoughts?
A real comedian adjusts to the audience in front of him. One of the problem is that in every speechwriting 101 book, it says open with something lighthearted and funny. And then you have your speechwriters try to write something funny for you. Well, speechwriters aren't sitcom writers. Speechwriters are a bunch of 20-somethings who just got out of college, who are sitting around and spending their entire lives sucking up to the Washington establishment. They shouldn't be writing jokes for you. My advice to every politician in America is pay a couple of $100 for a joke from a comic, okay? Let a real comedian write a joke for you and avoid these kinds of situations.
Would Kevin McCarthy survive this if he was the one that did this joke?
This is just a stupid joke, John. I mean, I don't think it's funny from anybody. I don't think it gets a pass from anybody. I just think, here's a tip. When you're speaking in front of black folk, don't do slavery or whipping references. Just a tip.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
That's just a tip.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, don't do that in front of any audience. I'm old-fashioned that way. I try to avoid that.
Sure enough.
And if you're not funny, don't do jokes.
Just don't try to be funny. Yeah,
Yes.
everyone's not funny. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not running for office.
Yeah.
Stay away from the jokes, people.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, now it's time to move on to another big story this week. It's the tragic passing of actor Robin Williams. He committed suicide on Monday and had been battling depression and drug and alcohol addiction for some time. The reports are that he hanged himself in his Tiburon home, that's north of San Francisco in Marin County. He was also found with superficial cuts on his wrists. The actor was 63 years old. Combined, his films earned over $3 billion at the box office. It's reported that he had just agreed to do a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire. That was the next thing in the works. And, you know, Cruiser, this is a case where it doesn't matter how much fame you have, how much money you have. If you have demons that you can't get under control, the ending is not going to be a good one.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to bring it down too much, but most comics are dark people and struggle with things like this. I talked to a good friend of mine, another comic I've known for 20 years yesterday, and she said, you know, we just tend not to live long, happy lives. And sadly, it's true. But here's there's always a lot of stuff floating around about Robin. I'll repeat the thing I put on Facebook the other day. Here are my only 2 interactions with him. Once I was headlining a club in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's near the end of my set, right as the checks are about to go out. So it's the end of the show, it's the end of the night, the staff's ready to wrap it up. Robin didn't know what time, we're not paying much attention. He drops in to do a guest set. Finds out how late it is. The club owners are like, oh yeah, we want you to go on. Finds out he's gonna make the staff stay late without getting any extra tip money because they won't be serving drinks anymore. And he just insists that he not go on and do a guest set, which is highly unusual because most comics who were far less famous would have, yeah, you get that guy off the stage. So that was cool. About a year and a half later, I'm in another club. We both dropped in to do guest sets, and I went over to Robin to thank him for that, and he was like so quiet and so subdued off stage. He talked like this, practically. I could barely hear him. And we're talking back and forth, just having regular comic conversation. Then he asked how my career's going, and I said, I'm working hard, I'm on the road all the time. And he just smiled, and he said, that's all we can do. Yeah. So the 2 times I interacted, or had any interaction with him at all, classy and nice and very sweet both times.
You know what's interesting to me too, guys? Those are fantastic personal stories. This interesting subtext I see going on social media now, these conversations around suicide and these different interpretations as to what people take from it, and is it selfish or is it not, and people are getting kind of judgy, and I like that people are kind of self-correcting on that issue and kind of, you know, taking a step back and saying, you know what, until you've walked in those shoes, until you've had that experience, you can't speak on it.
You know, here's the thing, and Shepard Smith was one of the people that had to apologize over that. Todd Bridges, the actor,
Yes.
also did the same thing. I don't know if the word selfish is the right word, or I think cowardly was one of the words that was thrown around.
Yes.
But I do believe that it is cruel, either intentionally or unintentionally, most likely unintentionally to the family, because these people are clearly in pain that we can't understand, or we've never been in, or hopefully never been in. But one of the things that does happen when you kill yourself in this manner is, yes, you cut the pain off for yourself, and he's no longer in pain, and for that, I'm sure we're all relieved. But his family now is in pain. His family is now grieving this loss and the unexplained aspects of what happened, and now they're thinking, could we have done anything to have helped him avoid this sort of violent demise? And I think that part is the real regrettable part.
That's true, John, but the other side of that too is anybody and I've had close family members struggle with addiction, they're already in pain, unfortunately. A different kind of pain, but when you have to watch your family member go through that type of, whether it's depression, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, the family's tied to that pain nonstop too. So it's just sad.
He had just gone back into rehab about a month ago.
Right.
Yeah.
His manager said for fine tuning.
Yeah.
But the good part is that I firmly believe this, that with modern science, at some point we're going to be able to figure out what's wrong and flip the switch.
Yeah.
But we just don't
Before it's
have
too
that
late.
information yet.
Yeah.
Same thing with paranoid schizophrenia and other mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now it's time to move on to the sweet spot. And Cruiser, you're up first.
Okay, this is something I shouldn't find funny, but I do. Stores with plastic bag bans are seeing a spike in shoplifting. The ban is in effect in most major cities here in California, may soon go statewide. One Rite Aid manager said that thefts have doubled to almost $1,000 worth of merchandise every week. Many people were hiding items in reusable bags, saying they had purchased them at other stores, when in fact they were shoplifting them. I love it, I love it, I love it. There's a Ralph's I go to here in El Segundo now because they don't have a plastic bag ban here, and I will not go to the Ralph's that are near me now. I go here just because I can get the plastic bags.
People do that in Burbank too.
Guys, tricky, tricky, tricky.
All right, Ebony, what do you have for us?
All right, okay, so the most overexposed, almost celebrity that we have, of course, Miss Kim Kardashian. Well, she just can't get enough of herself. She's going to be releasing a book of selfies. Yes, a hard copy coffee table book. It will be out next spring. It features 352 pages of the infamous sex tape goddess in her selfies. These are some of the sexy ones she took for her husband, Kanye. Of course, she says that she came up with this great book idea because she couldn't think of what to get Kanye for Valentine's Day. So I know, a book of selfies. The reality star had this to say.
Selfies are so fun. I've like accumulated so many selfies over the years that no one's seen. And there's even a section of all the selfies I sent Kanye over the years that he's really racy ones, and he's like he kept them. Oh, okay. So they might make the book. We're deciding, but there's thousands and thousands of selfies that we've sifted through to find the funnest one. And we've also taken like maybe my iconic like bikini selfie that everyone like freaked out about. It took probably 10 selfies to get that one that I posted, so I'm putting in all the ones that didn't make it.
I really appreciate the seriousness in which Kim Kardashian is taking this, right? I mean, you would think she's writing like an atlas or something. I mean, we know you're going to get it, Stephen. You can pick it up, John.
You know what? I know they're native born, but I want to deport this entire family. Pick a country and we'll deport them to that country.
As a hardcore capitalist, if somebody can make money just being themselves, I support it wholeheartedly. If you can make money just by waking up and taking a selfie, if you're making money doing what everybody else is doing all day long, I gotta give them props.
My objection to this family is you used to be famous because you could do something. You could hit a baseball, you could sing a song, you could act in a movie. They're famous with no skills. The only discernible skill that I'm aware of that this woman has is a lack of a gag reflex.
Okay, wait a minute now. Hold on.
Touchdown.
Hold on. Okay. And I'm not a Kardashian fan at all, but I'll say this. Is it very much different, though, than supermodels or other people that are famous for just being beautiful? Because that would be the convention. Yes, she's famous for a sex tape, but she's also famous because she's beautiful and she can market products, and people like to aspire to look like Kim Kardashian.
I don't know. I think they're the modern day Gabor sisters.
Honestly, I think Bruce Jenner is the linchpin there. If Chris hadn't married Bruce and given them a connection to like real fame anchored somewhere in the past, I don't know if that whole reality thing would have blown up.
How is she, by the way?
Bruce, she's a very happy grandmother now.
All right, time to move on to my sweet spot, where the man who brought the world the cronut is back with a new creation, and it looks like something that Bruce Jenner wishes he could get rid of. Dominique Ansel debuted his new peanut butter stuffed pretzel at his Soho bakery in New York. Some say the soft pretzel is also extremely obscene. Others say it resembles a lobster tail. Nothing but carbs.
Okay, am I naive? I actually see the lobster tail. I really do.
Oh,
I really do.
Sweet, sweet thing.
I know. I do. It's like, yeah.
My tongue is gonna bleed. I'm biting it so hard.
I mean, I could see how you could see it looking phallic if you chose to. But I could see the lobster.
Look, I don't know. The only thing I do know is that I heard that Chaz Bono ordered a dozen.
Y'all are funny.
And some super glue. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Would you buy Kim Kardashian's selfie book? What about Hillary Clinton mending fences with President Obama? Also, we would like you to leave your thoughts on the passing of Robin Williams in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Ebony Williams, sitting in for Michelle Fields, and Stephen Cruiser joining me in Los Angeles. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.